Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Martech Madness, brought to you by Measurelab. Just as we're waiting for everyone to kind of settle in and maybe any last minute participants to join, I'll just run through. There's not much housekeeping. There's a Q&A feature you'll see on the right-hand side. So you can use that throughout. You don't need to wait till the end, but we are going to cover the Q&A at the end. So any questions you have throughout or at the end, just pop them in there. And then we should hopefully have time for around 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. You'll also see a link at the bottom to get in touch with us. So if you want to reach out to Measurelab, you can click on that and it'll take you to our website and you can get in touch. We'll also send through the video recording afterwards. So if you joined late or if you missed some of it or if you want to share it with your colleagues, you can do that afterwards. Okay, so to introduce you to the two smart people that are going to take you through the content today. So we've got Mark Rochford, who's product director and one of the co-founders here at Measurelab. And we've got Matthew Hooson, who is director of engineering and technology. And I'm Dara, I'm the other co-founder, and I'll just be doing the moderating. So I'll be back at the end for the Q&A. Okay, so over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Dara. Just want to quickly introduce us as a company. So we are modern marketing analytics consultants. We have a heritage in digital analytics, and that's kind of evolved over the years. So that we're helping our clients with their data end to end, from collecting accurate data, creating trust with that data, taking control of their first party data, unifying their marketing and other data sources, to enable them to activate, orchestrate across all sorts of customer journeys. And we do that for a variety of clients. And we do that with the Google stack. So on one side, we're talking Google Marketing Platform. And on the other, we're talking about Google Cloud Platform. And we are certified partners in both. Today's session is called Stop the Martech Madness. This is because I'm sure you've all seen every single Martech vendor out there is wanting to keep you and wanting you to keep renewing your subscription. And they're all adding more features. So we've got feature bloat. They're all overlapping their features. They're all claiming to do unique things. They're all claiming to solve your problems. But every business is unique. Every business has their own individual problems. And we're going to put forward a way of addressing that in a more composable manner. So so you want to do more with marketing data, whether it's advanced analysis or personalization or segmentation, real-time targeting, orchestration, automation, activation, use of AI. The list is pretty endless. There's a lot you want to be doing more of. But often you're stuck, right? We see teams having to overcome incomplete data, siloed in different places, fragmented tools, different systems, maybe a lack of prioritization as well across your organization. You might hit across. You might have the data, but you'll have bottlenecks across various teams. Something else we see as well is lengthy procurement processes. And maybe you do have the promise of a digital transformation effort that's protracted across your organization, and you just want to get stuff done fast, right? So what would you be needing to be doing in a modern marketing world? Well, the foundations for this are a unified data model for activation, analysis, orchestration, identity resolution across your various platforms, so you can know your targeting and personalizing, and the ability to push that data across different channels, whether it be your CRM, your email, your ads, that kind of thing. There's two paths you can take. Three if you count doing nothing. The first one is to buy more Martech, which, as we explored earlier, seems a bit daft given the madness that we're seeing. Typically, they're monolithic platforms offering more and more. or you could build your own composable solution based around your own marketing data warehouse. But let's dig into that Martech for a second. Every platform it's creating its own moat in some ways by its terminology, the way it's setting itself apart from being like a customer intelligence platform or a customer engagement platform or a customer data platform. They overlap in features. They've all trying to do the same kind of things. Yes, they'll have unique features, but what you're finding is your business is determined by those features, and every business is unique. You've got very slick pitch decks. You've got lovely interfaces. They promise that you will be moving fast, but what you'll find is that you are moving slow because you're constrained by them. You've been there before. Bloating features, you're locked in for years, or you may be finding it difficult to scale beyond the features that they provided, or maybe you just bother by the cost of it. We're seeing CDPs, for example, costing upwards of 100 grand a year. Or maybe there's some things you really want within a particular platform that just don't exist. And of course, your success in marketing analytics still depends on the quality of the underlying data. Looking at what we mean by composable here, we're talking about being able to assemble different components, bring them together to create a more complex system that's adaptive, that's flexible, that's reusable and efficient. So the composable approach that we're talking about with Google Cloud, for us, is very much focused around BigQuery. BigQuery is big news in Google Cloud. It's incredibly powerful. Of course, you could be using your own marketing data warehouse, but for the purposes here, we're talking about BigQuery. You could be connecting point solutions via tools like Dataform, dbt, connecting your data from Google Analytics to any of these other data destinations here, and composing a solution that addresses your business need rather than the tools available. These are all freely available. Composable is now completely viable. Your cloud infrastructure is mature. You're sat on this data already. Development costs are falling fast. The tooling ecosystem is incredibly strong. And by building in this way, you stay completely in control. Things are changing fast, so you do not want to be committing to a big platform SaaS product, only to find that something changes in 6 months in terms of the landscape. So we have some success stories where we have created composable solutions for our clients. And Matthew will be talking through those. Over to Matthew.
Thanks, Mark. So as Mark said, we've got 3 case studies to run through here. Each of these are going to be looking at different aspects of categories of a Martech solution. So different aspects of a CDP or a marketing intelligence platform, for example. And I'll label the word aspects because oftentimes you'll find that your sales will be going out and looking for a solution to a very specific problem. And you may find a off-the-shelf Martech solution, a CDP, a marketing intelligence platform that roundabout or does solve that very specific problem. But what you get when you purchase that Martech solution is a solution to your problem and 150 problems looking for solutions. And the unfortunate thing is that you pay for all of those solutions. You don't just pay for what you have. So we're not promising here that we're rebuilding Segment from the ground up with Google Cloud. But what we are doing is solving the problem you're going out and looking for that means you would have gone and picked up Segment in the first place. So that caveat out the way. Next slide, Mark. So starting off with marketing intelligence platform or an aspect of a marketing intelligence platform. So here we worked with a client who had hundreds of different clients themselves. They were an agency, a consultancy. Each of those different clients had tens of different marketing platforms associated with them, and each of those marketing platforms had tens of different accounts associated with them, and they needed a way of centralizing all of that data to build upstream reports that would look at that would report on marketing activity. And they needed to do this in a very specific and a very dynamic way that understood client attrition and when to move data and when not to move data. And they had previously gone and been using a platform to deliver this, an off-the-shelf ETL platform. But the costs of this platform were beginning to balloon pretty significantly. They were getting towards £90,000 annually spend on this platform. And most of the reason for that ever-increasing spend was for new additions and features that weren't pertinent to the problem they were trying to solve. So they were frustrated in the fact that they were having to continuously pay for things they don't use. So we worked with them to come up with a composable approach to solving that specific problem. And we landed on this architecture you can see here. So we used Cloud Compose. All of this is built within Google Cloud Platform, I should say. We used Cloud Composer as like an orchestration engine. We used BigQuery as a data sync. We used Dataform as a way of transforming that data into reporting tables, and BigQuery and Looker Studio as the ultimate sort of reporting end of this solution. We used open source tools like Meltano and Cloud Functions to grab and extract the data. And all of this was completed in a time frame that's in the order of weeks rather than the order of months and years. And it significantly reduced down costs, coming down from around £90,000 annually to more like £10,000 to £15,000 annually, depending on how much data they were ingesting there. And the other benefit is that it could scale up with them having a good understanding of what that additional scale is going to cost them, because we're scaling the one specific solution. Next. We've worked with a number of different higher education providers, specifically universities. And what we find across a lot of these different universities is that they have one very specific common, or those that use SITS do anyway. So SITS is Student Information Systems, and that contains information about students, surprisingly, but it also contains information about enrollment, where they turned up to the first days of classes or not, what courses they're enrolled on, all of the kind of information you would expect a university would want to keep on a student. On the other side, you have marketing teams, and they're trying to drive enrollment and drive people enrolling on specific courses. But most of the time, their only recourse is to drive engagement, and what they would call a conversion is somebody filling out a form for an open day or filling out a form to download a brochure, not truly when their revenue is recognized within the SITS platform when a student shows up on the first day. So we've worked with a number of universities to sort of join the dots there. And there's multiple ways of getting data out of SITS, but one thing you can do with Google Cloud is to work to the environment that already exists. So most of the universities we've worked with so far have all been extracting the data into Microsoft Dynamics. We've been able to pull that data through into BigQuery, use a hashing algorithm to create joined up user keys and join the BigQuery, web analytics, marketing data with that SITS data, and then draw a line from marketing activity to bum on seat day one, recognize revenue, and give a much clearer picture of return on ad spend, and give them the understanding of what levers they can pull to try and affect things down in that what used to be a silo. Again, depending on the internal sort of systems and setups and people that you need to contact, this can take in the order of weeks to set up, and the costs are pretty negligible. Again, we're talking about Google's tiers here, so it starts at zero on many of the services and scales up. So when we're not talking about masses of data, and we're clever with the way we're setting up infrastructure, the cost can be extremely reasonable, especially compared to off-the-shelf solutions like a Segment, for example. Next. Another example is an aspect of a customer engagement platform that we worked with an energy company to solve. Now, energy companies and a lot of other verticals, a lot of other sectors will have the problem of user journeys to a conversion containing both offline and online aspects. So with this specific example, you can imagine a user visiting an energy site and getting a quote for a tariff, and then they see that tariff, and then rather than converting and signing up that tariff there, and then they go off to another energy company and look at that tariff, and another energy company and look at a tariff over there. Ultimately, they decide, great, I like the original quote, but then they pick up the phone and they phone the energy company and they convert via phone. The problem was that there was never a way to sort of join those two things together and understand that before that user phoned up, they also went through this tariff journey here. So working with the CRM data, which was pipelined into BigQuery, we were able to take those offline conversions, create a CSV, and then via the Google Analytics offline import, we were able to join together their online and offline journey data together for the users, and ultimately build out much more powerful and much more useful Google Ads audiences that they could use in downstream, in upstream marketing activity, and give them more powerful levers to pull again. Again, this is a weeks to complete the solution from sort of inception to delivery, and because of the nature of Google Cloud and the fact that we're able to do things like only turn on the compute engine instance when we need it. So once a day, we just turn it on for 5 minutes and turn it off. The costs are very low and very reasonable, because we're not paying continuously for 24 hours worth of compute sitting there all the time. Next slide. So all of these sort of composable solutions and it are ways, and it is a way of getting more value out of your data. So as I've kind of already alluded to with the timeframes that I was talking about, it's much faster to get from a point of I've got a problem to a proof of concept for that problem. As we'll come on to in a minute, there's much more steps in onboarding a Martech solution than there is in just trying to find your way and building out and experimenting with solutions. We're talking about Google Cloud here. There's lots of smart integrations with various data sources and routes in and out of that platform to both centralize your data and be able to do powerful things with it, but get it back out to GA4 like we just talked about, or other platforms. And there's off-the-shelf solutions like High Touch that sit on top of warehouses to be able to help you go off and activate and send data back out to other platforms. Overall, it's just a more efficient use of time and budget. And on that time point, if you go to the next slide. What we're typically looking at with onboarding, say, a large marketing technology solution would be something like this, in the order of months, if not years, where you've got to get cross-functional alignment from all the different teams that it's going to be relevant to. You've got to build out business cases, evaluate those business cases, figure out a selection of all the choices you've got. You've got to go through implementation, probably working with the provider and figuring out, set up multiple meetings to get to a point where you're ready to start onboarding and seeing that initial proof of concept, where hopefully at that stage it solves the problem that you originally set out to solve, and that there's no nasty surprises waiting for you at the end of that long process. The alternative is a much shorter time window. We're talking about being able to identify a problem, think of and design and build a solution, launch it, and assess its efficacy. So we can do this very quickly. We can adapt, we can pivot, it's very agile. We can abandon and move on to something else and try something else. We're not locked into anything. We can kind of go from start to finish in a matter of weeks and reassess. And the other thing I suppose to say that Mark already talked about is that everything is moving very quickly. Being locked into multi-year contracts for solutions can be really sort of weigh you down, especially when some new technology comes out, some new AI feature or some new whizzy bang feature appears that you can't access or do anything with for a very long period of time. Next slide. So how can we help? We've kind of laid out 3 sort of rough ideas here where we can be of assistance. So essentially getting data into BigQuery, a BigQuery quick start. Google Analytics 4 has a free connector to get your Google Analytics data into BigQuery, the raw output, the actual raw data. One thing that has become apparent is that some people mistrust that data sitting in GA4. It's a bit of a black box in places. So getting that data out into somewhere like BigQuery and being able to interrogate and analyze that raw data, begin to bring in other data sources and join them up and make more powerful solutions is a great place to start, and something we can definitely help with. We're also able to sort of look at what your data is like currently, how ready you are. Data warehouses are often started and left to die on the vine, or they're started it with a company not quite knowing what they're doing, or being at the very beginnings of their journey and built on top of very shaky foundations. So we can help come in, understand those foundations, understand your data accuracy, understand if there's places where you might need to put in alerting, data integrity checks, all those kind of things to give you a really solid foundation for clean, complete, secure, and available data that you can then go on to build all sorts of solutions for your specific use cases of your specific business. And finally, if you've got ideas around a problem, if you've got a problem, or if you've got an idea of a solution to a problem that you want to explore with composable approaches, and you want to get an idea of effort, resource, cloud costs, time it's going to take to make that happen, we can be a great sounding board in helping you not only decide if that's a good idea, but help you architect those solutions and even implement them if need be. So I think that is it. So I'll hand back over to Dara.
Thanks, Matthew, and thank you, Mark, too. Just a little reminder again, if you want to keep the questions coming in the right-hand sidebar, you've got the Q&A section. So I'll fire these out. So we've got one from Jade who's asking, what skills would I need in-house to manage this? So I assume that's if someone went down the route of having a composable solution, then to maintain that going forward, what skills would need to exist within the company?
It can be a bit of an unsatisfying answer because it very much depends on what you've built. So one example could be that you are building out really nice sort of modern data form transformations to change that data and build out loads of reporting tables, in which case analysts would be enough to be able to get to the grips with that. Somebody who knows SQL well, a commonality in most teams that are dealing with these kinds of data. If you're building out more complex data pipelines and things like that, engineering resource obviously is something that's going to be needed. But if you're engaging with a company like Measurelab or similar companies, oftentimes they can help you maintain these solutions over the longer term while you decide if you're going to sort of upskill your team or bring in new members of the team to manage these composable solutions moving forward. So it depends, but all manageable with the right help.
Always love an it depends answer.
Yeah.
I think you covered it well. Deepak wants to know, so this is a good one. If you want to use the GCP within marketing, but the data team is using Microsoft Azure, or I guess the same could apply for Redshift or whatever, can that still work? How would that work if you've got kind of multiple cloud environments?
I'll jump in there again, Mark, but feel free. So I think, yes, BigQuery is very accessible. It's kind of like, what's the term they use? Open cloud computing. So you can actually, there's connections to all of these other cloud platforms as well within BigQuery and other aspects of Google Cloud. You can even work with the data in situ in AWS or Azure, so you don't even need to move it into BigQuery if you want to keep it where it is. So there's plenty of options of accessing data from other platforms. And I think that one important thing is, especially with the speed of things, the speed of which things are moving, it can be really tricky for smaller teams within a company to get their voices heard and cut off their piece of that big central data governed pie, as it were. So being able to eke off a little bit of control and experiment and build solutions, even if you do have another centralized place, can be really powerful, and it's all possible with this open cloud network and being able to bring all these different pieces of data in.
Okay, we've got one from Julian. Hello, Julian. If I want to be able to personalize web experiences on the fly, I need to be able to segment users in real time as they interact with elements on my website. How does the composable approach stack up to this if it includes Google data, which is late or inaccurate for a day or two?
Yeah, Google data is inaccurate and late for a day or two, and I think that would probably prohibit you in some cases of being able to use Google Analytics data for those purposes. But there are various services and solutions in cloud to deal with real-time data, like using things like PubSub and Dataflow and things like Bigtable, which are all much more suited to real-time use cases. But yeah, you might be using different data and not waiting 3 days for Google to update an event and
it just depends on the type of data we're talking about segmenting from Google Analytics as well, of course, because it's attribution data that's reprocessing. And you could be streaming through GTM, through server-side GTM, data both ways, in fact. So you could be calling in real time a completely standalone model that then adds your segmented data back into GA to then be processed later. Lots of different ways of doing this one. Again, it speaks to the composable approach, I think.
Yeah, essentially, you could cut GA4 out the middle there. Essentially, send events server, PubSub.
Yeah,
do what you need with it. Yeah,
and then send it back into GA4 to be, or GA now, to be used later, right? So you could be
well saved.
We can keep it into
platform badge on this slide then.
Okay, Andrew is asking, so he's saying, I've got GA4 into BigQuery and we're using it a little with Looker Studio, but we know we could do a lot more within cloud. Where do we start? Big open question there.
Didn't know if you were to say one more, but I can.
I was waiting for you to jump in, but I could go on. You go for it, Matthew.
Okay. I think it depends on your problem. It depends on what you're trying to do. Not everybody is. I guess one of the advantages of going composable is you're solving the very specific problem you have, and every business has a very different problem. And a lot of the off-the-shelf Martech solutions, to make a business out of it, have to be as broad brush as they can. Like Google Analytics in of itself is as broad brush as it can be to service as many different sectors and vectors as it can. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve. But one thing that we can say is getting data into a centralized place like BigQuery, which is a very powerful data warehouse, is only going to be advantageous to whatever solution and problem you're trying to achieve. To maybe talk in a marketing analytics cadence or context for a second, there's obviously a lot of other connectors from marketing solutions in BigQuery. So you can bring in Google Ads data, you can bring in metadata as in data from Meta. You can bring in all these different solutions and services and centralize the data in BigQuery to start to build out reporting or whatever you need to do for your specific problems within there. But I think it depends again, but BigQuery is a good place to have that. It's a good central point to any solution, I would say.
I'm going to add to that. Where to start? Let's chat. We can help you work through that. It's about understanding your business and identifying use cases where we can be making the most of the tools available.
And I think that's a good note to wrap it up, because we're just about at time as well. I mentioned earlier, the video recording will get sent out to everybody. So if you missed a bit of it or want to watch it again or want to share it with your colleagues, you'll be free to do that. And as Mark just said, feel free to reach out to us if there's any questions you think of after the webinar, or if you just want to have a chat about any of this with us. Otherwise, thank you for joining. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you all soon, hopefully.
Thank you. Bye.